Got on my leather jacket Thriller. The show ain't nothing Miller. Man, I'm a lady killer. If I want her, I'ma steal her. I promise I can make her fly away like caterpillars. So if you don't know by now, then you should probably get familiar.
Hi, everybody. It's Leticia Remauro. I am -1 George Passarello, my partner today, and we are on Ask the Expert. Thank you all for tuning in. I know we've been on vacation for a couple of weeks, and with good cause. We were actually last Friday. We didn't have a show because we were honoring the people, the men and women that were lost in September 11th, and we had many ceremonies to attend. And prior to that, it was the end of summer and Labor Day, and while I know that COVID has got us all down, we found ways to overcome that challenge of how to celebrate the end of summer and celebrate life by doing some interesting things. And I'd love to hear from our audience what those interesting things were. And I want to remind everybody to like and subscribe to our show because we are going to be back to regular programming on Mondays and Fridays at 2 o'clock. But let me tell you who we have with us today. Today, our guests are Robert Isadore and David Bermudez. How are you, gentlemen?
Fine.
We're great.
How are you? How are you? Thank you for having us back.
I'm doing great. Thank God. You know, Staten Island, which you know is a little small town community inside of New York City, is doing great. And I thought that having you, both of you on today, we have so many questions that I know that you can answer about overcoming challenges. But I think that there's a symbiosis, if you will, with where you live in Cape Cod and Staten Island, and that, you know, in this big city, we are such a small, tight-knit community. And so we want to talk about politics, overcoming challenges in politics. But before we do that, we want to talk about the fact that the two of you have been together for 46 years.
Oh my God.
I'm an OG myself. My husband and I have been married for 40 years. And
Oh, really? Great.
yeah, I was a child bride.
I was too.
Sure.
So I think that, you know, one thing that our viewers would love to hear would be what is your secret? What's your secret to a 46-year marriage or partnership? I know that you married soon after gay marriage became legal, but what's your secret?
Well,
Keeping him out of the kitchen is one.
I like eating, but I don't know how to cook. But I can make you a good Italian sauce, like my friend Diane.
But you know what? And well, we call it gravy if there's meat in it.
All right.
The sauce.
Yeah, you're Italian.
I'm Italian.
Well, that's why. Yeah, my sister was married to an Italian.
Okay. So why is he not allowed in the kitchen, Bob?
Oh, you really want to know the truth?
Okay.
Well, David's a neatnik, okay? He's always wiping things down, cleaning things up. If I'm cooking or preparing a meal, I've learned this throughout the years. Probably like you, I put everything on the counter that I'm going to use, all the spices and whatever. If I turn around and answer the phone, I come back, everything's gone. He puts everything away. So
no, especially when you're following a recipe, you don't know. Did you already put it in? Did you not put it in? Especially
right.
If it's done.
So that's like taboo area. He doesn't, whenever I'm in there, he stays out.
So suffice it to say, so you're the cook in the kitchen, and that's kept a happy marriage. I mean, as far as my husband and I are concerned, he says that, that's a stress on our marriage because I am a cook, but I don't cook anymore. And I leave it now up to him. Yeah, I know. I cook on special occasions only. So he would say that he wants me in the kitchen more often rather than out of the kitchen. But here's how I look at it, fellas. I was in the kitchen from the time that my kids were born until they were preteen, and then I got a job, and then I had a business already, and then I got a job in the city, and I was contributing to the household. But I had to do everything, and he came home at night and said, "What's for dinner?" So now that was the first couple of years of the marriage, or first decade, and then now this half, he's retired because he's 10 years older than me, and I expect him to do all the cooking and the cleaning and the shopping.
Is he good? Good. Is he a good cook?
He's getting better. I
To get
him to solve.
to really answer your question, I think one of the things that, and David feels the exact same way, we have respect for each other. I think that's the basis for our relationship. Whenever issues come up, we can sit down and talk about it, but we do have total respect for each other. As you'll find out later, with the politics and all the craziness that goes with it, he's always been 100% supportive, and he's there when I need him to be there, and vice versa. When David not only does his speaking engagements, talking about Stonewall and gay rights, and also David was a performer as well. He's he can blow out Frank Sinatra anytime. Let me tell you.
Oh,
But-
now that you said that, we're gonna have to hear a little bit.
I'll send you one of my CDs. All right.
Yeah. Well, all right. So no live performance now? Not a little something?
No more.
No pruning? No pruning?
The last one we did was with
the senior center that over
yeah,
here, which we're going to talk about later. That the event that they gave both David and myself some awards, and we'll talk about why.
Well, let's talk about that now. I mean, there's no reason to wait. Let's talk about that because that was a real honor.
It was the 20-year anniversary of the first LGBT program at the Yarmouth Council on Aging. Believe it or not, living on Cape Cod, people think that, because of Provincetown and a lot of gay people, none of the senior centers had services for the gay community. I mean, people could come in general, but they didn't have specific programs. Because of that, and again, David's allowing me to go into this, because I was kind of the father of the programs that were started here on Cape Cod. I worked with the director at the time of the Council on Aging, and we started the first hospice program for the LGBT community, the first bereavement group for the LGBT community. Plus, we also started workshops, and not only with the gay community, but also with the police, the fire, paramedics, hospital workers. We brought in the members of the community to discuss our issues, and that program just blossomed from our Council on Aging throughout the whole Cape now, every single COA. And we were the first Council on Aging to fly a pride flag. No one else did. So.
And I guess it leads us into, the conversation yesterday, overcoming challenges. Now, the fact that you were able to have a loving relationship for 46 years, whether our viewers are gay or straight, I mean, that's a feat in itself. Because we don't hear relationships lasting that long anymore. The couples, are they give up. They give up, and I think that Bob, when you said mutual respect, that I find that for my husband and myself as well. The interesting thing is, and I know that this is true with the two of you, and is not. He stays in
Sounds
the
like
back,
me.
like you. But you support Bob, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
supported him.
Oh, yeah.
He decided to throw his hat in the ring to run for town council. Do I have that right, Bob? Well, why don't you, if you don't mind, I don't want to put any words in anybody's mouth. Bob, tell us what your position is now, and tell us what you were, what your position was that you ran for in the beginning and why you
Well, I'm chairman of the Yarmouth Democratic Town Committee. I have been for 18 years now. Seems like 180, but I enjoy it. It's very gratifying. We have a great group of people that we work with. But prior to that, I was president of the Cape and Island Democratic Council, and that was actually for 12 years. Yeah, excuse me.
and that's similar to the city council in New York or town council
Well,
anywhere.
it's probably different. I mean, we have different things. Like out here, we have town meetings where a lot of towns and cities don't do that. And we have county government, and a lot of people in other communities don't have that either. So it's set up a little differently. But when I was president of the Cape and Island Council, my district basically covered all of Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, and Nantucket. And that was overseeing all the Democratic town committees. So it's a little different mix, but it's a lot of work either way, as you can imagine.
So is it when you say Democratic council, is that only Democrats serve in that, in the
But
capacity? Or is it
yes, usually,
Democrats a small D or a big D?
but like for instance, in my position in the town, I'm on the ballot. So I'm elected in a Democratic primary to represent the Democrats. So, so it's, I don't know what you would call it in New York, but
Okay, so then the way it's set up is that Democrats have representation and do Republicans have
Republicans.
representation?
right, exactly. And what we did, like for instance, in the last primary, which was, I called it kind of a nightmare because it was a state primary, but we also had a municipal primary in the town the same day.
Okay.
So when people were mailing in their mail-in ballots, which the entire state does here, um, it required two separate ballots because one was a state primary, one was a municipal primary. So say if you had 10,000 ballots, it became 20,000.
Wow.
So it was a challenge, but it went well. We even had the results the same night, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Statewide, yeah. So, but we work, we do like poll observing, and my committee actually set it up, but we welcome people from other parties to join in with us. So it's really a nonpartisan effort
Okay.
to shore up the integrity of the vote here. And we work across all the time.
So, to tell me a little bit about your decision to jump into the race for the council, and how did that work between the two of you, especially
That's
since
the story.
and David, I
Oh,
want,
you tell 'em.
yeah,
Yeah.
just for people to know that, David is a fighter and has done more to open up, equal rights, for all of us than most people, and we'll talk about that in a bit with the Stonewall Rebellion, and some who have seen my specials, in the past, they heard that story. But let's just talk about the guy that doesn't like politics, married to the guy that decided he wants to run for town council. Talk about that a little bit, Bob.
Well, when we first moved here to Cape Cod, in the middle 90s, 1990s, I joined the local Democratic Town Committee as a member. And at that time, we had a female chairwoman, but she decided she was going to move to Connecticut. And I won't mention her name because I don't know,
No.
you know. But she was pretty set in her ways. I guess we all are. But the fact is, when someone mentioned, hey, why don't you ask Bob if you want, would like to run? And the first remark was, oh, no, no. And they said, well, why? He says, well, he's one of them. So I wasn't going to run. I didn't want to. But when I heard this, David always says, don't piss off a Portuguese queen. So I got pissed off. He was just as angry as me. And he said, you're going to run. I said, yeah, I am. And I ran. And David was calling up everybody he knew in town. I was calling people. Well, the day of the vote came in, I won by one vote,
One vote.
but I won. And whoever's out there, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, or whatever, don't think your vote doesn't matter. Believe me,
Oh, yeah.
it does. And I don't care what your party is, what positions you take. You know, the old saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. Get out there and vote. I don't care what you're voting for or who you're voting for, but make your voice heard.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know,
It makes a difference. I mean, I think the irony in part of that story is that you were running in a Democratic primary, which many people, would say, "Oh, I'm gay. I have to be a Democrat. I'm a woman. I have to be a
Yeah,
Democrat.
right,
I'm African American or brown or yeah." And it goes to show you that racism and bias happen in every country.
everywhere.
it's true. I mean, I was the first openly gay man ever elected as chairman of this town committee. I was the first openly gay man ever elected to be president of the Cape and Island Democratic Council. And I'll tell you one other story. I was asked in between all this to run somebody's campaign. He was running for a state representative. Okay. And I had never run a campaign before, but I said, okay, and David knows, I mean, I was probably out more than I was home because we're going to all these campaign events and rubber chicken dinners, whatever you want to call them. It was on and on and on and on. Well, what happened is the newspapers, there were two or three different newspapers, but one in particular decided to do something different. They wanted to interview the campaign managers, not the candidates. And they did this, and it was an interesting aspect of reporting. So when they came here, the guy shows up on a motorcycle. I said, oh, good, this is going to be interesting. So, and David sat with me, and I was very open about our relationship and how, at the time, how long we were together. And that was before marriage. Okay. So one of the candidates was a real right-wing conservative. But he decided that he was the campaign manager and the candidate. So he gave his story. Well, when the paper came out, actually, let me back up. Before the story came out, the guy that interviewed me called me up. He was all upset. He said, I got to ask you something. I said, you're at our house for 2 hours. What else do you need to know? He said, no, no, no. He said, the candidate, and again, I won't mention his name, decided that he wanted the guy that interviewed him to put in the paper that representative candidate has a gay campaign manager, and I want you to print it. Now you have to realize Cape Cod at that time in our area was pretty conservative.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, very.
So when the paper came out, they had this guy, his open, his full page article, and his was all black and white, and it showed him and as the candidate and campaign manager, and in the article they put in that I'm going to just say Mr. Turner, because it's public. Campaign manager is a gay man living in a relationship with another man, but then they put underneath it, apparently the sexual orientation of Mr. Turner's campaign manager is a campaign issue. And it was like a thumbs up to this guy, not a thumbs up, middle finger up.
Right.
Well, you turn to my article, they had it in full color. There were flags behind me. There was,
Very gay.
it was like, but when the election happened, it was weird. In our district, which was conservative,
Oh,
Turner had a landslide victory that virtually everybody on the street that knew us turned out to vote because they got to know who we were, not because of our sexual orientation, but the kind of people we were. They knew David as an outgoing man talking about gay rights, not only gay rights, equal rights for women, everything. And it was totally turned upside down, which, it's a change. Right?
And that's how change comes about, in my opinion, is when good people stand up and say, hey, this isn't right. I don't like the way this is, and it's not right. And so, David, that brings us, it's a great segue into talking a little bit about you and your history, because as you know, I revere you greatly, and I thank you every day, and the others, Williamson Henderson, and Rowe, and everyone, for what you did in 1969, when you decided enough was enough at the Stonewall Inn. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Can I say something first before I do that?
Absolutely.
We were talking about what keeps people together, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I have these lady friends of ours that they're two lovers. One is Sarah and Linda, and the other one is Diane and Carol.
They're married.
And they're married, and we stood up for their weddings and all. But they asked us that a couple of times, and I said, and then I remember that Sarah asked me that question, and I'm at the wedding. I remember, and I said, I have to say something. I'm from New York City. I've gone through an awful lot. I've been around. You know what I mean? But I believe that if you respect each other, you try to understand each other, you try don't get into this hokey pokey stuff. It's not worth it. Try to talk with each other. And if you don't want to talk, don't talk, because it may make it worse. But I always say respect. And I told that to Carol and Diane too. And that's how I believe. And we've known people in Cape Cod, young guys who married right away, and they divorced. And I keep saying, if you want to get married, especially being gay, the world is changing right now. See each other a few years. Get to know each other. Find the ins, the outs, and everything. Even live with each other if you have to. Whatever. But don't do it immediately, because you might make a very big mistake. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's true, from whether it's in your relationship as lovers and to be married, or in friendship.
Right.
And I mean, especially nowadays, the world has become so, I guess, divided right now, especially our country, right? It's been so divided along the political lines, and I see people just speaking terribly to each other and about each other. And just think, if there was mutual respect, just because our opinions aren't the same.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
But respect. Talk it out. Maybe you'll learn something, right?
And you know something? You have a Portuguese and a Puerto Rican. Imagine that one. You imagine an argument on that one? And I'm always right. I'm always right.
But, think, and again, Bob is so politically driven, and like to stay in the background of politics. I mean, there's so many opportunities for you guys to disagree, but
Oh,
your respect and your communication allows
yeah.
you to move forward as a team.
Even when we were ready to buy a house in California, nobody wanted to sell us a house in the 80s. Even though we had the money and everything, nobody. When we came to over here, we figured, no, we're going to buy a house and we're going to buy it together. You know what I mean? We did and it worked.
Yeah.
But there was a time that
Couldn't do that.
even if we had all the money in the world, you couldn't do that. We even had a lawyer who was a gay man, well known in California, who was there for us to buy it, and they turned us down. You see, that's the 80s.
That's the
That's
that
not
was
that.
the Anita Bryant era.
Yeah.
Right. And so we've gone through a lot of that, those things with ourselves. We kept ourselves going, and here we are. We're living in this house now 22 years.
Yeah.
22 years, yeah. But I was going to say, you were talking about Stonewall the night and all that. What
Yeah.
I'd like to say first is, a lot of young people today, and we know this because I speak to a lot of young people, they think of Stonewall, but they don't know what happened before. I mean, this went on for forever, but I could only speak about the 60s because that's when I was out, in the 60s. And one of the things that was happening when I came out, which I didn't even know, I moved to New York, I lived in a brownstone, I had a job, and being myself, and I didn't know the prejudice with LGBT, and I could understand it. I just, what's this all about? What did I do wrong? My father was a minister, you know, and my father
Pentecostal.
Pentecostal, holy roly roly roly. But we got along real well. And I know he knew because I was going with someone at that time that he really cared for, an Italian guy who he really cared for. And I knew he knew, but he never, never, ever, I was there, I was his son, the whole bit. So I was going to say, before Stonewall, a lot of this stuff was going on. We were getting beat up, we were getting killed. Parents threw us out. Nobody wanted us. People thought we were just a bunch of crazy, nutty, whatever, sexual people. So I like people to know that when you're hearing about Stonewall, it was just not that day and that night. This was going on for years and years and years. Can you imagine in the 1920s? Can you imagine the 1800s? I believe that most of these people were either murdered, killed, whatever, and that was happening even in the 60s.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that because a lot of the kids always say to me, "Well, Dave, you guys went in the barn, you made this up, you plotted this." I'm going, "Oh, no, no, no," and I'll say this because nobody curses in your show. It's not a bad curse.
No, you can first.
You think
Speak your truth, speak your heart.
okay? Oh, my heart. Oh. I tell them, listen, do you honestly damn think that I had my ass kicked, that I was beat up, our friends were beat up? I knew two guys that committed suicide the night of the Stonewall at the Hudson River. They threw themselves in. Do you think that was something that we made up for people to beat you up and call you names and throw you out of houses and all? So that's talking to the young kids and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But what happened, I'm Bobby Toy. I'm a singer. I was a singer for quite a few years. And one of my favorite people was Judy Garland. And the gays loved Judy Garland. All the gays at that time, you go to Carnegie Hall, you go to all of our concerts, whatever, it was 90% guys. And she knew it. She was a big, we call them fag hags at that time. Kids, you're learning something new. And she was very good with us. And we kept her going. Even I heard that in New York City, she went through a lot. She lost her money and she went in hotels and they threw her out and all that kind of stuff. Two gay guys took her in Manhattan. They took her in with her daughters and her son. But the thing is that at that time, we were sort of like what they used to say, closed in a closet or something like
Yeah,
that. They used to say
yeah.
stuff like that. But I never understood it. Remember, I was married, the whole bit and all. And
Wait a minute. You were married to a woman?
woman. Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, wait, you skipped right over that, my friend.
I thought it was a gay show.
I mean, but I think that puts an underline and a punctuation,
Right.
to the story you're telling is
Yeah.
that
A
you were
straight
married
woman.
to a woman. Okay,
Yeah. All right.
okay.
We'll skip that one.
Because I'm sure that Robert is jealous.
No, no, not the- yeah.
Little late for that.
You're a little late for that, that's right.
So, what happened? I moved to Columbus Circle on 67th Street, and I lived in Brownstone. And years ago, the laundry mat was downstairs when you had to wash your clothes and all that. You know that. Remember? You go downstairs, wash your clothes. Well, I used to go downstairs and wash my clothes, and I go in the laundry mat, and all these guys would say, "Hi, how are you?" And I say, "Hi, how are you?" And where do you live? Oh, I live over here. I live over here on the fifth floor. And I never knew that I lived in a gay neighborhood. And then one guy that I know became good friends. His name was Maxie. Says to me, "David, are you gay?" I says, "Well, I really don't know." "Well, be careful. You live in a gay neighborhood and this building is gay." I says, "Are you kidding me?" I never knew that. But that's how it started with me. So we found out that Judy Garland committed suicide, actually sugar overdose in London in her flat. And when we found that out, us guys, we went like, it's like losing your sisters, your mother. You know what I mean? We lost a wonderful, wonderful woman. So, you know, we left it like that. Then we found out that she was going to be laid out in Campbell's funeral parlor in New York. We thought she might be laid out in Los Angeles, right? As most actresses are. But no, she was in Campbell's funeral parlor. So when we found that out, we all went. We went to the funeral and all that. There was thousands and thousands of people in the street, thousands and thousands of people to see her. But I was in show business, trying to get in show business. I knew this guy, and he says, "David, come on with me." And he took me to the back door, and I got into the chapel. So when I got into the chapel, it's a small little chapel. If anybody from New York knows the Campbell's funeral chapel. Uh, and when I got to the middle, I didn't want to go any further because I'm a funny person. I want to remember you alive and all that. So I went to turn around, but there's a whole bunch of people behind me because of the crowd and all that. So I had to, and I went. We got there. There was a small little coffin, glass on top, glass top. She didn't look like her. Her hair was black, but I was feeling good. I said, forget that. And I said, Judy, that wasn't Judy Garland. And I left. So I went home, and at that time I was living at the YMCA. So about 10 o'clock, they called, they paged me. "David, you have a phone call," and some friends of mine saying, "Come on, let's go to the village and celebrate Judy's, life." And I went, I don't think I want to do that. You know what I mean? So left it alone, and I was packing and all. Called me about 10:30. "Come on, come on. We just get in the subway. It's not that far. It's West 4th Street. We'll go. We just hang around and just have a couple of drinks." I said, "Okay." So we did. Got to Greenwich Village. Went to different bars and beautiful night, moonlit night. The bars were full. A lot of sadness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And about 1 o'clock came, and my friends wanted to keep going, and I said, "No, I got to go. I'm moving tomorrow." And they said, "Well, it's all right. Well, but you just have one more drink." "No, no, I got to go." Well, in New York City, especially at that time, you don't get on a subway at 1 in the morning by yourself. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I said, "Okay." So we were not that far from the Stonewall, you know. So we go to the Stonewall. They have always had a doorman. The guy knew us. We got in. It was really packed of people. Music was going. Stonewall had jukeboxes, by the way. It was one of the only ones that had music. You know that. A lot of the clubs didn't have it.
Right.
Bars. So, and being who we all are, we just did our thing. And there was a little booth way in the back of the Stonewall. I haven't been there for a while, but a little tiny booth. So us Latinos, the Latin guys, and a couple of Italian guys, we always hung around in that little booth. And a guy would come around and ask you what you want for drinking. And so we did that. So we went inside, we're doing fine, and all of a sudden the big bright light goes on. Now the kids have to understand that when the cops were coming in to all bars, even lesbian bars, that meant don't touch each other. Somebody take that record player and pull the plug or something, whatever. Just hang out and talk with each other. That's all. But don't do any more. And we couldn't believe that. And it was like already almost 1:30 in the morning. And I went, oh, I can't believe this. I'm moving tomorrow and all that. But in the interim of all of that, a friend of mine said, why don't we do this? Look, we're way in the back. Let's take our ID out. Let's show them, because they used to show them IDs. And at that time, we didn't have pictures, by the way, in the IDs. It was just an ID. Today you have pictures.
Yeah.
And I said, all right, we did. So we're waiting, and we saw the cops come in. They closed the doors. And when they did that, they would tell us to separate so they can go through the front. And then while they were doing that, you faggot, you queen, you know what I mean?
Because at the time it was illegal for men to dance together. It was
Even women, even women.
Even women.
And not even that, we were not dancing, it was just a raid. And then the bar, a lot of the bars in the village, I know about the village, were run by the mafia. The mafia was very big on this.
Right.
And they used to pay the cops. I'm going to say cops because at that time we used to call them cops.
Yeah. But also, and I just want to stop you there. Another interesting situation, right? The gay nightclubs were the ones that were run by the mafia, who you would not traditionally think would be, a place where they would support the LGBTQ rights. But the mafia was one of them.
Yeah, right. And they give them big money, and then we found out later on that the Stonewall was the biggest money maker. It was. We went to Puerto Rico. We knew about Stonewall. We went everywhere. People knew Stonewall. You know what I mean? So
Sorry to interrupt.
they used to always pay the mafia. But then we found out later on after the raid that they didn't pay. The mafia did not pay the police. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They came in and raided us. They didn't pay them that month.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? That later. So let me go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
What happened? They were calling us names. They were pushing us around, and I feel so bad, terrible for the drag queens, because they were the ones who used to get the brunt. The drag queens, they were the best. They were the best. They were fabulous, and let me tell you, tough. They might be in drag, but they were tough. And they're the ones who used to get the blunt. They were the ones who were throwing paddy wagons. They were the ones who, So, just to make it short, because I know he's saying I'm talking too much.
Not at all. It's a story that people need to hear.
Huh?
It's a story that people need to hear.
I have to hear, yeah. So then what happened? They did that, and we found it strange that they closed the doors. If they come into any bar, because it was, all the bars are rated.
Yeah.
They would come in, ask you for IDs, call you dirty names, whatever they did. You know what I mean? But not this time. They closed the doors. I saw some policemen, and then couple of them were just plain clothes, which later on we found out they were plainclothesmen.
Yeah.
So they came in and they were doing their thing and all that, and we were ready to give our ID. Mind you, we were in the back, so it took a little while to get there. And we heard, "Get your damn hands off me, you faggot. Don't you go calling me a faggot. You're a faggot yourself. You're a closet," all that kind of stuff, which I'm not going to say most of the stuff they said, because us New Yorkers know how we talk, right?
Right. Yeah, you might shock the people in the Midwest.
Yeah.
But let me just stop you there. So Santa Guglielmo, who is my aunt, who knows well the nightlife in the '60s, and my mom, Joan Nastasi, both joined us today. They say hello, guys, and my mom says just to go back to your relationship that sadly all the old values are gone when it comes to marriage and relationships. But at any rate, both Santa and Josephine Nastasi are on with us today. Hi, guys. Go ahead, David.
Hi, guys. I was going to say that. So then here we are waiting for them to come, even though this commotion was going on. And then we heard what we never heard here, because, I'm going to say something. Again, the young kids, you get away with a lot today.
Right.
I'm going to tell you something. We were raided, hit, put in paddy wagons, brought to the nearest police station. We got beat up, a lot of things and all. We never, ever hit back a cop. We never answered a cop. We just did our thing. If we get a fine, we pay our fine, whatever it is.
Yes.
Right? So when we heard this commotion going on, we looked at each other, what the hell's going on? I said, I don't know. It just started. They started calling names. The cops started, just the whole thing erupted. Mind you, I was way in the back, so we could see a lot from the front. You know what I'm saying? All we needed to do is we have to get out of here. We have to get out of here. So just to make it short, we got out, all right? But I want to say this. When I hear young people today, and I talk a lot, I talk a lot to young people and all that, saying things about she did it, he was there, it was a black man, it was a drag queen, it was all this. I'm going to say something. When this happened, this just didn't happen because we hired or we got a friend of ours to start a riot. No. This happened because how we were being treated for years, how we were beat up, how we were disgraced. A lot of my friends were street kids. You know why? Because their parents used to throw them out into the street.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine, I think he had 5 or 6 guys living with him. Hard times. But the thing is, when I hear young kids say that, I'll say, stop that. We didn't do this because of fame. Fame. Like I said before, I don't get my behind wrapped around for fame, We did this because we were tired. Now, listen to this. We have Black Lives Matter right now. It's not any different. It's not any different.
Right.
These people are fighting for their rights to be left alone, their rights to be who they are and be proud of who they are. And they're loving people. The thing is, we went through this and we understand it, us gay people, how we went through this. And years are going to come. Yeah, years are going to come when somebody's going to say, oh, it wasn't the blacks that did it and all that. It's going to come. That happens. Like it's happening with the gay thing right now. So you look, if you don't understand what went on with the night of Stonewall, look at what's going on right now. It was the same thing. It wasn't as big as it is. But look at it. They used to beat us up. They used to call us names. A lot of guys were shot. I know, killed. We were treated terribly, just like Black lives. It's the same thing. So look at it as a small thing with us. Now, it's right in your face. Right in your face. Now you know exactly what we went through as gay people, and we fought back, and here we are. Which I believe the same with Black lives. It's going to get better and better. It's going to. It has to.
I was going to say, one of the things that you had asked me about was what was one of the biggest challenges you faced during our relationship.
Yeah.
And this actually what happened when we were in California. I know David will talk about the AIDS crisis. But what I wanted to say is that it was 84, actually. We were traveling back east to visit Pennsylvania to visit two friends of David's.
Yeah.
And we had two women friends with us. And David had a grand mal seizure in a hotel. We had to rush him into the hospital, and we were in Newark, New Jersey, in a little Portuguese section of Newark, in a little tiny hospital that had nuns in it. So anyway, um, David was in there. They evaluated him. They found he had a brain tumor, and they had to do surgery. And the reason I'm saying this is because at the time, I didn't have any rights for this guy.
That's right.
Luckily, David, when he went in, I don't know if it was written consent or he gave consent to the doctors to include me in all the decisions that were being made and everything. So we went back to California after the surgery, and it was literally 2 or 3 years of recovery for him. Um, you would never know it, but he lost his ability to talk for a while. we made up for it. But,
Is that what's happening?
yeah. But the thing is, all the time in California, luckily we knew some doctors there, and I was able, when he couldn't, make some decisions for him health wise. And it was a pretty rough 2.5, 3 year period, getting him back on his feet, his ability to speak. Um, I mean, all kinds of things. When you have brain surgery, there's a long, long recovery. Thank God he recovered fully. No trace of anything else. But it was a really trying time for us. And so I relate, as David said, the younger generation, they don't realize what a gay couple would face in the 80s, even the 90s, because I mean, they could have just said, "Hey, you have no right to make a decision," and they would make the decision for him and me, the doctor.
And that, to me, when you think about rights, right, human rights,
Right.
civil rights,
Right.
for the gay community, rights are still being restricted,
Yeah.
and that we're just what you said. If for women, it's not as if that a woman would ever have a situation where somebody that she loved, in a heterosexual relationship, wouldn't be allowed to have information, right? So, if somebody is black and married, it's not going to be that they, would be restricted, or Puerto Rican, or because of the color of their skin.
Right.
It wouldn't happen that that restriction occurred because of a religious belief. But for gay couples, until marriage was allowed, that right was restricted, and people don't recognize that. I mean, like we have common law marriages right now, so it's 7 years. Together in some states, the person you were living with gets to have all your information, but it wasn't that way for gay couples.
No. No.
And that's what I think for me, and this again, it's as a Republican, because I truly believe that government should never put restrictions on anybody,
No.
and we should have everybody under the tent. For me, gay rights were so important because I felt that, first of all, love is love. And I still feel this way, right? Love is love. And people have the right to love who they love. And that's your business, not mine, but you should not be restricted from having all of the rights and obligations and responsibilities and whatever that everybody else has. That's number one. And number two is that your it's part of human condition, right? There's heterosexuals and there's bisexuals. Since the dawn of man, I know. So to try and deny that, it's just silly. It's no different than if you're born in Africa, you're going to either have dark skin or light skin. If you're in certain parts of Africa, if you're in Puerto Rico, you're going to have golden skin, right?
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter, right?
it's part of your makeup. It's part of your
Well,
makeup.
there's another thing too, as far as being Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, whatever, you know what I mean? At that time, for us, it wasn't that. It was people used to say, they used to look at us as sexual. What we used
Yes,
to do, what two men did, what two women did, how disgraceful. Jesus would hate that. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Tactics, called scare tactics. Today, look, young kids, again, white and black, Puerto Rican and white, Italian and black, we're all marrying. Look, we all marry. We're a mixture. We will be this forever and ever. So when you hear anything, give me a break. This is the difference between now with the Black Lives is that, I don't have to say anymore. But then it was, what do you do with each other when you go to
Exactly.
bed?
yeah,
And it's disgusting, and that's not good. God wasn't like that kind. That's how they used to treat us with that. They used to call us pigs, slobs, sick, mental, and kids. Yes, a lot of us went into mental homes and all that. We had shock treatments too. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's a difference. But today, thank God we're alive at our age now to see this. It's the black people are fighting for their rights, not because they're only black. Yes, it's, hey, I'm a human being.
that's it.
You treat me like a human being. So you look at me and you see me black. Well, look at me. All right. I'm going to say this. I'm Puerto Rican Spanish. All right. My grandmother's mother was black, my great grandmother,
Yeah,
and the rest of the family was Spanish and Puerto Rican.
yeah.
So if somebody comes over and starts talking like that, I'm going to say, well, you ever hear of biracial people? Get what I'm saying? I mean, it's so stupid. The whole thing is so stupid and all. But we went through this with the gay thing too. It was so stupid the way they used to treat us, beat us up, and treat us the way they did because they thought the sex thing. Going back to my tumor, my doctor once said to me in the bed, and my mother was there, and she asked, her mother was very feisty Puerto Rican. If you know any Puerto Rican ladies, you know they're feisty. And she says, how did this happen? He says, well, all I could say to you, Mrs. Velasco, is that he's had that tumor close to 20 years.
Wow.
It was growing it was on my left side between my skull and my brain. She didn't know. So time passed. So many years went by. We were talking, and I says, Bob.
Well, he did ask if you were ever hit.
Yeah, that's right. He asked me if I was hit. I said, yeah, I was hit, but I didn't get into anything with him. He was a great doctor, great doctor. Years later, I found out, the area where I had the tumor that grew was about the 60s. I used to get hit with billy clubs. If kids don't know what that means, that they used to carry these sticks.
Sure.
I always used to get hit here, especially the night of Stonewall. Williamson can tell you that.
Right.
Oh, hi, Williamson, by the way. And I said, that's what it is.
He was hit with clubs, and that's where the tumor.
That's where the tumor was. It was between my brain and my skull. It was on this side. And I remember every time, I don't know, maybe because I used to do this a lot, I would always get, hit over here. So, that I just wanted to go back to that to tell you that, you know what I mean? That's how dangerous it was at that time.
Yeah, and the thing is that's one of the reasons that I worked to start the programs here, the hospice program, because I'll always remember that period. I mean, I remember everything with him, but but I remember that period because it was a traumatic. It was very emotional. I would never ever leave this guy for any reason. But the thing is, I started thinking about couples that were not married because we weren't married at the time. And if one of them is in a position where one of them needs hospice,
Mhm.
we have seen in many cases where a family would come in, swoop in, take everything, and the surviving
Mhm.
partner was left with zero.
During the AIDS virus.
And there's no, can you imagine? Think about it.
Mhm.
If your partner, your life partner, uh, is getting hospice, the time is limited. then all of a sudden, people from the family
Everywhere.
come in who would have nothing to do with you
Yeah,
before,
but want what you have.
but all of a sudden, you're out of the picture. I mean,
Mhm.
And that just shows you, I think that it shows us how antiquated some of our laws are. Still to
Oh.
this day, right now, we're having a situation, where there are certain groups that won't allow adoption,
Right,
for,
yeah.
for gay couples, or surrogacy, right? The question about surrogacy is
Mhm.
coming up, and it just baffles me, because if, when there are two loving parents who want to have a child and to give a
Right.
child a home, why would anybody
What
prefer
if,
to not have that baby have a home than to
Mhm.
have that baby have a home in a gay couple's house?
Yes.
It makes no sense to me.
Mhm.
And I think that, for me, and I know I swim upstream, because I was one of the few Republicans that supported gay marriage
Mhm.
way long, long ago.
Yeah.
It was actually in the Washington Post that I did, and they wrote the story to kind of be a gotcha to me as a Republican leader. But
Yeah. Yeah.
listen, I'm for fairness, period, and that's why I do the things I do. But I think that what I'd love to hear from you, especially Bob, from you, because I know that you and I have spoken about the fact that you have always supported the person, not the party,
correct.
and the fact that we have so much division in America right now. Just for a moment, let's talk about what you would like to see change in America to bring us back to a peaceful place, and where everyone's right, whether you're a minority or woman, gay,
It
straight,
doesn't matter.
everybody's rights are being protected. As an elected official, what would you like to see focused on in the next decade to change the world?
Wanna go
No,
first?
you.
Okay. He's letting me go because it's political.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think if this country is going to survive as a democracy, all the parties, Republican, obviously, Democrat, and whoever, need to set some kind of common ground and work together. You reminded me of something when you said I support people first before party. We I mentioned we just had a municipal election that was for town council, town selectmen, as we call it here. And I recruited someone to run who is not a Democrat.
Mhm.
He's what they call unenrolled here. I
Mhm.
guess it would be independent in New York.
Mhm. Republican,
Um,
actually.
he is a great guy.
Yeah.
I've known him many years. Um, and there was a Democrat running.
Mhm.
And I just said, hey, I mean, I knew the values that this man had. As you said, he worked right across party lines. He didn't care if you were a Democrat, Republican. He was there to listen, always listened, was able to mediate a lot of things. He would work to get the sides to come together. And I said, he's the perfect person that we need as a selectman, as a council member. And the Democrat, who I have nothing against, but I did not agree with his positions on many things. Meaning, you know, you got to be a certain way because I'm a Democrat. I said, no, you don't have to
No,
be.
you don't.
Right.
You have to. You're an American first before you're a Democrat or Republican. And I have to say, the guy that I supported and we campaigned for, I'm sure I got a lot of frowns from the party fathers. I had his signs in front of my house, but he came in the landslide.
Big, big landslide.
And I think it shows not only the fact that, I mean, I stuck my neck out because he was unenrolled, but the fact is that the community, after seeing the positions of all the candidates, chose him. And it made me feel good to know that we're in a community now that is not so far to the right or not so far to the left anymore. They look at what we need as a community and what we should be doing as Americans. I applaud you for running. I think
Yeah.
I'd vote for you if I was there.
Thank you.
Knowing
He'd probably be your campaign manager.
You could do it from a distance. We could always do that.
I honestly think that no, this country needs so much healing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you have the gay rights, people still fighting for gay rights. You have women fighting for equal rights. You have Black Lives Matter. I mean, there are so many pockets of unrest. I mean, we need to sit down and talk.
Mhm.
We
Oh,
do.
yeah. All of us.
I think communication is probably,
Oh, yeah.
and I think that the thing that upsets me the most is that I was at a point where I was looking at my grandson who's now 15 years old, and
Mm.
I saw how he I don't want to say he was colorblind, but he appreciated different ethnicities and respected people for themselves and not because of their creed or their color or
Whatever,
whatever.
yeah.
And suddenly, with the unrest that we have right now, he started asking me questions about, I don't understand what's the problem with black people. Why are the black people upset? What does this mean? Black Lives Matter. What's happening here?
Mhm.
And as a grandparent, trying to express to him that this is something that a discussion that has to go on between the police and the African American community, and we
Right.
all have to have a conversation about
Yes.
it. But at the same time, you can't have a conversation when you're disrespecting authority. You
Exactly.
have to have that conversation in the context of, okay,
Respect.
we're feeling like we're being set upon, and we believe our lives matter. And what I said to my grandson is this: to me, Black lives have always mattered, always. And for the
Yeah.
past 60 years, 67 years, my parents taught me that that equal rights and human rights are a very, very important thing. So Black lives have always mattered to me. Gay rights have always mattered to me.
Yeah.
Women's rights have always mattered to
Yeah.
me.
Well, yeah.
Human rights have always mattered to me.
And
Correct.
even if you have you're a Republican Democrat, you have to respect each other.
That's
You
it.
know, I'm going to tell you something. When Bobby and I were getting married, and we were going to have our wedding. There's two dear friends of ours that live in California. I've known them for years. In California. We owned an antique business, and I did design. And I met her like that. Her name is Lynette. Born again Christians.
Mhm.
He's like an Irishman, a good-looking policeman. She's Italian and
Filipino.
Filipino. Her mother was a kick. She was an Italian kick. I loved her. They found it out over there that Bob and I were going to get married. I get a phone call. They wanted to come down for our wedding, and I went, okay. It's no, no. You have room. If you don't, I'll get it in. I said, no, no. We have room. They came here. We had a nice wedding. So when the time came to give each other the rings and all that. They didn't know that we picked them to give us the rings. They
Oh,
didn't know this. And two people that lived across the street, Frank and Linda. So two of them gave one to Bob, the other two, they were straight people, straight couples. You know what I mean? And it was so beautiful. They were like, "Oh no, no, you have a lot of gay friends." No, no, that doesn't work. I want you to do that. So they gave the ring to Bobby, and Frank and Linda gave, for me. And you see, Republicans, big Republicans. He was a big policeman who became a lieutenant, and
Yeah.
whatever. And her Republican. She was not really political. She loved decorating. That's what she liked. That's why she liked me.
stay in the background.
Yeah, and we became very, very dear friends. And they said, "No, we're coming down. We're coming down." They came down. The same with Frank and Linda, straight people and all. So when
And
people
I got
talk,
to respect,
to
we
respect,
started the
exactly,
program with that conversation about
exactly.
respect and communication. So, gentlemen, we've run over. I have to tell you, as
Can I-
always, I
Can I say
love.
one thing?
Oh, my, absolutely. Go ahead.
Right. I think you should have, maybe she could be a great speaker for you.
Yeah, put it-
I'll hold it up a little higher if I can.
There you go. See the book, The Stonewall
Okay.
Generation?
Yes.
Okay, Jane Fleischman, she's a PhD and she's also a lecturer. She wrote this book. She included a chapter, a whole chapter about David. But there's a chapter about, let's say, 5 different couples in here who lived through the Stonewall generation, about their relationships, how it evolved, and where it's going. I think she'd be a great
put it higher up.
great person to
Oh,
have.
that sounds great. So I'd love to talk more about that with you offline. I'll give you a ring. You can hook us up and we can see if she'll come on and speak.
Sure.
And,
Sure.
and going forward, I just want everybody to take a page out of Bob and Dave's book and recognize that respect and communication is what kept them together for 46 years. And I'm going to say probably tenacious, being tenacious too, right? Because you can't give up. Just because something gets uncomfortable is not time to bail. Sometimes, obviously, look at what happened. You nursed Bob, you nursed David through a time that was difficult. And my own husband did the same. I had a brain aneurysm. So
Really?
You did too?
I had a they fixed it. I've had a motorcycle accident and I can't tell you, I've been beat up myself. Thankfully not by police, but by other things. Gentlemen, it was such a great pleasure having you. I'd like to have
Thank
you
you.
back again. I know we have a lot that we left on the table that we'd like to speak about.
Oh,
So
sure.
we'll come back.
Anytime, sure.
Okay, everybody,
And I'd like
thank
to say hello to all our friends too that are
New
listening
York,
too.
right.
Hello, everybody.
and you can see this. This will continue to live on Facebook and on YouTube. And everybody like and subscribe. Friday, we'll see you again at 2 o'clock. So thank you, gentlemen. Have a great day.
And thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Leticia.